The U.S. men's national team September roster was announced by Mauricio Pochettino, and following a year we had the Nations League, disappointing, a little bit better in the Gold Cup, although we lose to Mexico. Here we are, with about 4 windows remaining before we kick off the 2026 World Cup. I think most people, including myself, thought that we would have the direction towards a final roster, that those decisions over players on the fringe, players perhaps looking for more playing time, had been decided. But alas, they had not. We will talk about it here on the Soccer OG. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all of you checking us out. And we're back here with the U.S. men's national team front and center. Although, as you know, we will talk about anything and everything on this channel. And people just went ballistic when they saw Sean Zawadzki, among many others on this team. A roster, as we show you right now, that we're missing a lot of big name players. Johnny Cardoso, Yunus Musa, Jedi Robinson. And there's reasons why they're not here. Weston McKennie, Joe Scally, Mark McKenzie, Flo Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Matt Turner, Aiden Morris. The list of people who are not there, who are still, according to Mauricio Pochettino, still in the mix to make the roster. While, as we mentioned, Sean Zawadzki making it in, Sebastian Berhalter getting back into the mix, Max Arfson, everyone's favorite, Roman Celentano, Jonathan Klinsmann, Nathaniel Harriel. A lot of players that, I'm not saying I am considering them. I didn't. To be perfectly honest, I will say this first and foremost because I listened to the entire press conference with Mauricio Pochettino, and this is Mauricio Pochettino, and whether you like him or you liked him or you don't now, there's nothing that can really be done at this point. He's going to lead to the World Cup, unless some bottom falls out, which I don't foresee, because clearly he is still building this roster and he'll be given time to do it. You have got to see this through. I was pretty sure that this September roster, those players that we didn't see in the Gold Cup, the whole Christian Pulisic situation and many others, some who were injured, Christian Pulisic who needed to recharge the batteries. He got it off his chest, as did Tim Weah, and now he is playing back. So I'm good with Christian Pulisic. And hopefully that's all behind him. He's not on this roster. Mauricio Pochettino was asked about Pulisic. They said they didn't talk about it, but it made it sound like all things were good. Christian Pulisic's going to be part of this national team. And again, just to get back to the top line here for me, I think we should have had close to a roster. I think there's some guys like Nathaniel Harriel and Sean Zawadzki that shouldn't be called in there. I don't know why we're giving them a look, knowing full well these are not players that we put in the first class cabin of the plane heading to 2026. But Mauricio Pochettino has been diligent. He says he's looking. If he says he hasn't figured out the roster, we got to take that for face value. It's the way it is. He is still figuring out. He said that. He said this is the last. He did say that this was the last window where he will be looking at players for the first time. So in the October and November window, we should have more clarity. So he said that, which he never said before about the timetable. So now we have that. So I would have liked September to be it. It's just too close to getting to the World Cup. That said, it is still 10 months from the World Cup. It's the beginning of the European season. There's a lot of players returning from injury. So if you look at it player by player, you can consider the reason. I think without question, Jedi Robinson just started playing. He shouldn't be coming back. That is a no-brainer. So Sergiño Dest did make it, and he had just returned from injury. Flo Balogun just came back. Johnny Cardoso, who probably should be in here because Johnny Cardoso, Mauricio Pochettino has to make it work with him. Johnny Cardoso has to be on the World Cup roster. You just can't have a guy starting for Diego Simeone and Atletico Madrid and not have him on the roster at the very least. You would hope that he could play in that midfield in the 2026 World Cup and leading up to it. And I imagine he is still in the plans there. But look, this is not debatable. Mauricio Pochettino has to make Johnny Cardoso work. End of story. Same with Christian Pulisic. Everyone else, some guys you can make it work. Flo Balogun, I think you make it work. But this is a guy who's been from injury and the lack of production. You go back where he showed a glimmer in the Copa America. That was a long time ago. Josh Sargent's on this roster. And to me, before we get into some of the interesting part here is what Mauricio Pochettino said. Josh Sargent, Alex Zendejas, these are two guys that can really grab this opportunity here on this roster. This is their chance to show they belong. Josh Sargent, who's been lighting things up. By the way, Haji Wright did not make the roster. I think that's pretty telling. I think with Haji Wright, you could certainly say he is on the outside looking in. But for those two forwards, for Alex Freeman, where Anthony Robinson's not here, I think those are the three most intriguing players for me on this camp. Sargent scores a goal or two. We're back into it. Josh Sargent is going to get closer to making 2026. The same can be said for Alex Zendejas, who's been exceptional for Club America. And then Alex Freeman, who has been discussed to perhaps moving to Spanish football. A chance not to displace Anthony Robinson, but certainly give you an option if anything happens. Although Anthony Robinson should be the starting fullback, no questions asked. You want less questions and more coming into this. The other players, Yunus Musa. I'd be a little worried if I was Yunus Musa because he hasn't had a chance to really show his stuff, and he's not here. Aiden Morris has been really good at Middlesbrough in a small sample size since the league started again. I thought it made sense for him to have him play here. I would think he is an option for the World Cup team, but alas, we'll have to wait and see. The guy that he was in front of at Columbus, Sean Zawadzki, is now in the mix. Joe Scally, I think Joe Scally's in pretty good shape, and he should find a way onto that final roster as well. Musa worries me a little bit, and Weston McKennie worries me a little bit. Not starting for Juventus. Mauricio Pochettino said everything he said about Weston McKennie suggests that Weston McKennie is going to be here. But if he's still looking at players in September, he is clearly not convinced on some guys. Ricardo Pepi, back from injury. I wouldn't worry too much about him unless Josh Sargent catches a heater here and kind of gets in there. Everyone that's not on this camp has to be a little bit nervous to different degrees because they want to be here. And they missed some of the summer, some of these guys, and hopefully they're made whole in October. I truly believe this roster will look much different than October. I believe a small percentage of players on this roster will be on the final 2026. I will take it at face value from Mauricio Pochettino for what he has said about this being that last camp, and then we'll move forward, okay? It's overdue. I agree with most of what you're saying. So let's get into what he said that obviously made the big headlines here. By the way, just what he said about Weston McKennie. We really know Weston. It's not necessary for me to call him. So it sounds good, although I'd be a little worried. I'd be a little bit worried of Weston, although I think he certainly gets on the roster just because it hasn't started great and the summer didn't go great. So we shall see. What Mauricio Pochettino said about individual players, I think the goalkeeper situation, Matt Turner's not here. I can't imagine that's good for him or Zach Steven when Matt Freese and Jonathan Klinsmann are here with this team. And these decisions, Matt Freese has a chance, I think, to cement himself as that number one based on what he did at the Gold Cup. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, the cobra in the control room. And that is when a question was asked about how he looks at players and how he's going to make up this roster. And he said, I believe this was the exact quote, the MLS, in my assessment, is maybe more competitive than some leagues in Europe. So this has been a big talking point, right, about where our American players should play. I would say that has taken a step back with sending players to Europe based on what we have seen the last year and a half under Greg Berhalter and now Mauricio Pochettino. European players not producing when given that opportunity. European-based players having an issue clearly balancing national team and club. Christian Pulisic at the top of that list. It's the way it is. It hasn't gone great. The idea that just send all your players to Europe and we'll have a better national team has not fleshed out by any means. It, in fact, flatlined or gone in the opposite direction. I'm not saying that opens a door for fielding MLS players, but it certainly gives them an opportunity to compete. And I think that is what's happening here. Now, however you want to take what he said about Major League Soccer, And we have this conversation all the time about what the best leagues are. He was pretty, he muddied the waters a little bit about European leagues. And I think if you look at quotients that have been made and data, there's the top 5 leagues, the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, Germany, France, that MLS can't touch. They're closing the gap little by little, but those 5 are way ahead. This was more directed, I believe, at the Belgian Jupiler League, the Dutch Eredivisie, the Scottish Premier League, the EFL Championship, the Turkish League, the Argentine League. And I would put the Brazilian League just behind those top 5 European leagues. The Brazilian League's exceptional. But all those other leagues, do you play there or do you play in MLS? I think Mauricio Pochettino saying, I think there are positives in playing MLS that stump those. And now everyone's going to, I got a guy who sent me a graph saying, look, this is what Opta rates them. And Opta's a very reputable source. But even Opta has the EFL Championship with a minuscule edge over MLS and the Dutch Eredivisie. They're so close, and it didn't used to be that close. So MLS is closing the gap. And yeah, I know I work for MLS, but I mean, these conspiracy theories are just absurd. And everybody wanted Mauricio Pochettino into this national team. And now he's here and he's giving you his opinion. This is a coach who either has played or coached in Argentina, in Ligue 1, in La Liga, in the Premier League, now with a national team. And you're saying that he's spent some time now and he is going to put his reputation at risk because the folks at USSF and Don Garber are telling him this is the way it is? Do you really believe that is at play here? He has said that his assistants are all over MLS watching play. He has been impressed with the level. What can I tell you? I've worked 4 or 5 MLS games where I've seen one of his assistants, including last week, at an MLS game. He has been impressed. What can I tell you? Would I like a second opinion with someone not involved with U.S. soccer? Sure. But this is Mauricio Pochettino. His reputation precedes him, and he said it. So I could sit there and listen to the keyboard warriors on social media telling me he's wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And this thing could fall on his face flat in the World Cup. It certainly feels like it's closer to that than massive success. But this is Mauricio Pochettino, baby. This is it. And I think we've got to, if we want to have a real conversation about this, these conspiracy theories about MLS have got to go away. The MLS quotas, we had the 2022 World Cup where there were like 3-4 MLS players. So that is not valid, regardless of what Jurgen Klinsmann might have said at one time. The idea that MLS is compromising their officials to get big name players to have their moment, which I heard this past week when Thomas Mueller had the winning penalty kick. They said they wanted to have Mueller to have the winning penalty kick in order for MLS to contrive everything. If MLS wanted to contrive everything, why didn't they let Thomas Mueller win the game with his free kick the week before? They took that goal off the board. If MLS wants to contrive everything, why don't they fast track Lionel Messi to MLS Cup instead of the New York Red Bulls? It doesn't make sense. It's not happening. What we're seeing here is based on the player pool and Mauricio Pochettino's opinion. Maybe he wants to light a fire under a few guys, so be it. MLS is not in the league of the top 5 European leagues. But if you want to sit there and say EFL Championship, Dutch Eredivisie, and you want to say that promotion relegation is the difference, I'm sorry, it's not. Promotion relegation, I love it. It makes the game exciting. It makes exciting for the viewer. But it doesn't bring stakes to a regular basis because you could be in a league and lose 22 or 23 games and not get relegated. That means you don't feel the pressure. You can't lose that many games and avoid the drop. Again, I enjoy it. I like to watch it. But don't tell me that gives these leagues an edge. So I hope we can get back to the player situation. Again, we need to have our roster closer to the final product in September the year before. I don't agree with Mauricio Pochettino kicking this down. He did it. It's Pochettino. It's his team. Let's see what he does it. Because there's, again, what's the alternative? Bringing in Steve Cherundolo or someone like that to see it through? You got to let Pochettino have this moment, and hopefully it goes well. USA play Korea on September the 6th. They play Japan on September the 9th. 2 big games. Hopefully they don't get routed. Hopefully we see some progress, and hopefully this plan comes together. The Soccer OG. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back to get ready for those games, to preview them, and hopefully have some good news to report.